Welcome back to Global Eye. The death toll in the Israel-Hamas war has crossed 6,000 as Israeli airstrikes continue unabated in the Gaza Strip. Israel claimed that it attacked over 300 targets in the Gaza Strip in just 24 hours. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry has claimed that around 40% of Palestinians killed in the war so far are children. Shell fragments from an Israeli tank have hit the Egyptian border, injuring at least 7 people. The Israeli military said it was an accident. US, UK, France, Canada and Germany have urged Israel to adhere to international law and protect civilians. Meanwhile, humanitarian aid began trickling into Gaza over the weekend. The UN says that the aid is just a fraction of what is needed for over 2 million Palestinians. Joining us now is Eylon Levy, Israel Prime Minister's office spokesperson, former diplomat Casey Singh and Berzin Wagmar of the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies. Eylon Levy, let me begin with you. There are reports which says that Israel has deferred the ground invasion of Gaza because the US has requested for doing so, considering there are negotiations going on to release hostages in the background. Could you confirm what is the status of that ground operation into Gaza, the ground invasion that was being planned?
Our goal remains unchanged. The total defeat of Hamas in response to the October 7th massacre, when Hamas death squads rampaged through Israel, murdered over 1,400 people in the most brutal way imaginable. Now, Israel is going to use its force judiciously and carefully at a time of our choosing when we decide that it is right for us to proceed. But it's important to understand that Hamas declared war. Hamas declared war on Israel on the morning of October 7th with the most shocking, brutal terror attack that anyone can possibly imagine. And Israeli society is united now. It's united with a deep sense of conviction and justice that we have no choice now but to totally destroy the governing and military capabilities of the terrorist group that perpetrated that massacre. Our forces are ready and we will move in when we decide to.
Eylon, one thing that Israel has repeatedly stressed is that it's very important to rescue those 200 or 200 hostages, 210 hostages who may be somewhere in Gaza right now. Give us a sense. I know it's very difficult to give out the full strategy, but what are the efforts being made militarily and diplomatically to get them out? Considering that Israel does not negotiate with terrorists or the Hamas, how is this effort being carried out?
The hostage crisis inside the Gaza Strip is something that is touching every family in Israel personally. You know, we're such a small country that everyone here either knows someone or knows someone who was abducted, murdered, brutalized, injured in that attack on October 7th. And as it stands, there are now over 220 hostages inside the Gaza Strip, from babies as young as a few months old ripped out of their beds to elderly people without their medication. And our position is clear. We demand their immediate and unconditional release. There is zero excuse for abducting these people, taking them hostages inside the Gaza Strip. We're demanding that they be given immediate access to the International Red Cross. That's non-negotiable. That's a basic humanitarian condition. And we expect the rest of the international community to continue using every lever of pressure on Hamas in the Gaza Strip to release these hostages, because that is a war crime. It's a crime against humanity. It's completely unforgivable that now for 2 weeks there have been 30 Israeli children hostages inside the Gaza Strip. It just shows you what kind of brutality we've been facing from the ISIS-like terror organization that perpetrated the October 7th massacre. And we're demanding their immediate, unconditional return. And their return is a top priority for us. And we will do whatever is necessary to bring them back to their families.
Right. Let me also get an Ambassador Casey Singh, who's been our envoy to Iran in the past, Eylon. Ambassador Casey Singh, yes, Israel is making all efforts to rescue those hostages right now. There is also a considerable amount of anger among the Israeli military, the population as well. But Iran is also sounding a warning. In fact, the Iranian foreign minister has gone on to say that if Israel does not stop hitting Gaza, the Middle East could spiral out of control. What would be your larger worry right now in terms of the messaging coming out of Iran?
Look, the fact that the Americans have moved a big flotilla to the eastern part of the Mediterranean, also President Biden coming there on the 18th, right in the middle of all this, is a very, very special kind of visit. I think he did two things. He empathized and sympathized and with Israel and extended all the support that the Israelis require. But he also very silently was sending a message that, look, I understand your outrage, but let your outrage not overcome you or completely drown you. And he gave the American example. He says, look, we were upset after 9/11, and then see, there were mistakes made. He didn't mention the mistakes, but very clearly, Americans went in, they spent a few trillion dollars of wealth in Afghanistan and particularly in Iraq. And remember, when Mosul was Iraqi forces went into Mosul, it took them 8 months to overcome that city. So it's not very easy to overcome an opposition in close fighting in close quarters, particularly when it's known that Hamas has 300-400 kilometers of tunnels underneath. So Hamas are very cleverly using the hostages. That's why they released 2 Americans to keep the Americans engaged, to have the Americans talk to the Qataris. And the Qataris have said, yes, they played a role in this. Now, if they're not going to let I suspect all the hostages go, because they're using them as a human shield. They realize if the hostages went, then Israel may just commence their attack. So they feel that that is their guarantee that Israel is being held back, the question that you asked. And then, of course, there is Hezbollah. So that is why Israel's got all their reservists, 350,000. They've got 1,000 tanks out. They realize that it may well be a two-front war, and that is why they've attacked the airfields in Syria, because they realize that's the way the Iranian help will come, and that is why the Iranians are making the noise, because these are all Iranian surrogates created over a period of time, and they would not like their surrogates to be defeated or to be outbid in all this. So it's a very complex situation in which Americans would like Israel to be satisfied, maybe Hamas leader to be somehow decapitated. How do you do that? You can't kill all of them. So how do you decapitate them?
Right.
Probably it's too early to be talking about an end game, because I think Israeli army will go in. But the question is when. I think this is after securing the northern frontier, after making sure that Hamas is not willing to let any more hostages go, and after allowing the civilian population to shift, because at the moment, I believe, only about 600,000 out of 1.3 million people in northern Gaza have shifted. And after opening a humanitarian line, 20 trucks have gone in, come in, more trucks are coming in. So there are 2-3 things the Americans are doing. One is try shifting as many civilians as you can out of harm's way, so that there is no, they don't get caught when the Israeli army goes in. And that is still work in progress. So that is why I think Israel's holding back, probably holding back themselves. Also, the Americans are telling them, give us a little more time. So we don't know when this ends and when the attack starts. But there will be some fighting, and I can't see it ending without an intrusion.
Okay, you cannot see it ending without an intrusion. But Elon, any kind of prisoner swap that Israel may agree to, certain columnists, experts in Israel too have said that maybe we should swap some prisoners and get the hostages out. Is that something on the table at all? And the latest joint statement issued by US, UK, Canada, France, Germany and Italy, does this change the approach in any way that Israel has to this war currently?
We demand the immediate and unconditional return of the hostages, and I'll repeat that, their immediate and unconditional return. It is entirely unacceptable to the state of Israel that the brutal terrorist organization that tortured, murdered, and massacred people on the 7th of October is using our innocent people as human shields. That will not pass. We want them immediately and unconditionally. Now, look, on the international question, it's important to understand that Israel enjoys broad international support and legitimacy for this campaign. You know, I'm old enough to remember that in recent rounds of conflict with Iran, the world said Israel has a right to defend itself. And this time we're hearing them say Israel has a right and a duty to defend itself. We had Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of the United Kingdom in Israel just a few days, one of many leaders who have come here to express solidarity visits, saying the UK wants Israel to win. And of course, we saw President Biden here in an extraordinary solidarity visit, the first visit by a president of the United States to Israel during a war, saying that the United States will make sure Israel Israel has everything it needs in order to win this war, because the attacks that we saw on the 7th of October, that brutalization and torture and massacre of Israeli civilians was so horrific that I think the free world understands that it's time, it's long overdue time to destroy Hamas, that terror organization inside the Gaza Strip. And we feel that embrace and solidarity as we move forward with that mission. The days ahead will be difficult, they will be tough, they will be hard, but we are going to destroy Hamas and defeat it in the Gaza Strip because we have no other choice.
All right, we've run out of time, but Elon Levy, thank you for joining us, and we'd like to thank Ambassador Casey Singh and Berzine Wagmar as well. An important story to follow up, and of course, it is something that has global ramifications as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.